with the Sewing Rocket, and this channel is dedicating to making connections between the artisan and technology fields. In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between nylon coil zippers and resin zippers. The inventor actually came up with several patents before he successfully was able to manufacture a zipper. And so he worked about 20 years to develop his fastener. And it was about 1917 when he was able to finally develop a kind of a usable prototype. And then about 1919 is when he developed a machine that was capable of producing, you know, more than small amounts at a time. And so around the 1920s and 1930s is when zipper started to become popular to use in garments or purses. Really, like little purses and tobacco pouches were some of the first things that were created out of zipper tape. So if you look really closely at a nylon coil zipper, you'll actually see these really small teeth. Zoom in a little bit so you can see those. So they're really small little teeth right there on. So the first thing you'll notice are these really small teeth on your nylon zipper coil. So they're really tiny little teeth right there. So this one is nylon, and this one's considered a resin. And on this one, as you can see, you have these large interlocking teeth. So the resin is really similar to metal zippers. Their teeth are actually very similar cuts. The only difference obviously is that this is made out of plastic and the metal is made out of metal. So the next thing I want to talk about is how they're manufactured. So if you look at these, you'll notice that these are actually tiny little kind of cylinder shaped barbs, as you can see there. And these are made extruding it through a die. And so you essentially push plastic through a tube shaped object and you kind of pull it out like string to make these nice pieces. And then the next important thing to note actually is that these are sewn in, and so the thread actually makes a difference on how it looks. So in this case right here, this thread here is actually clear, and so you can't see the thread that's sewn. But in this other example, so for instance, this rainbow example, this actually has, so this is our Andromeda zipper tape here. The other one that I showed you is our prismatic zipper tape. And so our prismatic has clear thread, but it does have these nice rainbow teeth to it. And then our Andromeda has a very similar rainbow teeth to it, except this one has rainbow thread. And so if you can see, for instance, try to zoom in. So right here, you actually have this green thread on top of these blue teeth here. Another example is maybe here. So you have this yellow teeth in the background. You actually have this red here. That's the actual thread. And so with the nylon coils, these pieces are extruded through a tube, and then the teeth are actually sewn onto it. When you look at resin, it's very different because these little teeth are actually injection molded, and so you have these little molds that make each individual tooth, and then these are melted onto the tape. So as you can tell, the only things that you can, at least with this particular tape, the only things that you can customize obviously are the tape and the teeth. Whereas when you have nylon zipper, you can actually customize the teeth, the thread, and the tape. These are both number 5 zippers, and number 5 refers to the distance across the width, and so this has to do with being 5 millimeters across the actual teeth on both of these. So these are actually the same width. To me, the resin always looks a bit wider, but that's not the case. The nylon coil is also the same size. So let's talk a little bit about what these are made out of. And so this is called nylon zipper coil, and the coiling has to do with the way that the teeth look. These used to be primarily manufactured out of nylon, but it's not, they're not always manufactured with that anymore. It's either a nylon or some type of polyester. And depending on the manufacturer, it could be either one. Even though the zipper tape is made out of polyester, it's still called a nylon zipper tape. Your resin teeth, on the other hand, they're usually made out of a polyacetyl resin or a polyester. And so these could actually be made out of the same base plastic. And depending on the methods, like I said, this one is extruded and this one is injection molded. Those are really cool, really common engineering manufacturing processes. So if you want to learn more, there's tons of videos out there. Let's talk about the uses for both a resin and a nylon coil. So a resin, the teeth are usually a little bit more heavy duty, but it doesn't handle well with curves. If you can see, you can see that it doesn't curve as nicely. You'll see that the nylon coil is actually much more flexible than the resin, and so you tend to want to use the nylon coil with anything with curves. The resin is used on a lot of outdoor wear, and you can't really use this on like if you're making a garment, the garment fabric can't be too light, or this will actually weigh it down. This is significantly heavier than this one. I should have maybe brought a scale in here. Maybe I'll do that, and then you can see just how heavy these two are. They're kind of comparable lengths, but this is at least probably like 2 to 3 times as heavy as your nylon coil. So let's talk about using these types of zippers, say in like a home setting, or if you have a small business. So nylon coil is the most popular style. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe people aren't as intimidated by the look of it, and it looks a little bit easier to use. So nylon coil is the most common, and so it makes it the cheapest. So normally when a lot of things are made, the price will be driven down, and so the resin isn't used as commonly, and it tends to be a little bit more costly to manufacture than your nylon coil. So if you want to use either of these at home, these are sold by the yard. If you haven't tried Zipper by the Yard, I would encourage you to venture out and try it. It's a lot more cost effective, and it gives you the ability to be able to customize your zipper pulls with your tape. So if you look at these teeth, if you think about sewing, I've personally sewn over the zipper teeth without any issues. If you don't have that powerful of a machine, you might be very careful. You just don't want to jam up or gum up your machine. But it's pretty easy to sew across these, so you typically want to sew a little bit, however that is, to at least bind those teeth together. So if you have a purse, for instance, it'll be bound at each end, and so you typically sew across it, or you'll attach it to fabric. But however that is, I haven't had an issue with my sewing machine being able to handle that, or an issue with breaking a needle, which is always terrifying. With your resin, on the other hand, these teeth are a lot thicker, and so I would suggest, if you're sewing like on a home machine, probably on an industrial as well, just to be very careful around the teeth. Whenever I work with resin or anything thick that I might think I could break a needle, I always just kind of hand treadle across this piece here. I hope you learned more than you ever thought you could about nylon and resin zippers. I hope you really learned something that you can find useful and that it actually is exciting for you. Please think about subscribing and let us know down in the comments what you would like to see next, and enjoy your day. Bye.